that, I want to introduce our speaker today, Jason Rutledge. And I realized talking to him that we had been saying sustainable forestry, but he informed me that, as it says here, it's restorative forestry through modern horse logging. So, Jason, I will turn it over to you. Oh, and those of you online, oh, never mind. I was going to say if you can't hear me, but I can't hear me. I'll check in the chat. Sure
you can center yourself and just.
I want to thank Ann, Sustainable Blacksburg.
I'm online and I can hear you fine, thank you.
Definitely to my talk throughout the morning here is about the movie that I have available over there called Somehow Hopeful. It's an 81-minute documentary about, it's called The Story of a Woodsman. It's basically the story of what I've done. Principally, interviewed 7 apprentices that I've had, half of which are women, to learn how to do this work. But one of the hopeful things for me is that there are such volunteer organizations such as Sustainable Blacksburg that are concerned about the future and doing things in a way that can go on beyond their own time. Because to me, that's the definition of sustainable, is doing something that will influence people beyond my own presence, my own generation. One point that I would make here about restorative forestry, this is, I have a TED talk you can look it up too, where this came to my mind as I was giving the talk. You know, the word sustainable has gotten compromised in so many ways in my industry of forestry. It's often compromised by saying things like we're growing more trees now than we were in 1900. And what we're doing already is already sustainable because we have more resources than we have markets for.
Sorry, can you move? You need to be closer to the computer.
For the microphone?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And yes, speak up and speak clearly.
So back to the sustainable being a buzzword, it's sort of compromised because they're, you know, one of the classic approaches is to reductionism and marginalization. Those are 2 words used by my mentor, Wendell Berry, about how things are made less than they can be through those kind of comments. And to define what I'm doing even more precisely than the word sustainable is able to do in my concept, understanding that it's so compromised, it led me to recognize that all of the empirical data, scientific information is telling us.
Jason, I think you need to be
much closer. All of the data, all the information is telling us that the state of the natural world is in one of decline. We're losing thousands of species every year. Our water is more polluted, our air is more polluted. We have higher cancer rate. Things are not sustaining and then stay the same, they are declining. So my question is, how do you sustain a decline? You don't sustain a decline. You either have to be getting worse, staying the same, or getting better. So our position from a forestry perspective is that in order to have a chance to be sustainable, you have to be restorative. And I want to change the argument to not what is sustainable, but to what is restorative. What does restorative really mean? And in my discipline, again, in my science of forestry, to me, the definition of restorative forestry is to create a condition as much like a pre-European forest, meaning before the white man came here, as possible in a single entry, meaning an intervention on harvest. So that leads me to, how did I come up with the name of our group? The name of our group is Healing Harvest Forest Foundation. It's almost a contradiction to start with. It's almost a paradox. Now, wait a minute, you can't harvest and heal, but actually you can. And the way you do that is you imitate nature and you figure out how to identify the worst trees first, the trees that are not healthy, that are not vigorous, that are not of proper form, that are not of proper species for the proper aspect and location. And you remove those trees first with the mindset that what you leave is more valuable than what you're taking. That way the forest will heal itself very rapidly. rapidly in even a human sense of time, since most of our life is so human-centered, and we don't realize that the average tree that we have growing in our Appalachian forests is only maturing when it gets to the age of that we're dying, 75 years or so. So our approach at restorative forestry is based on imitating nature and taking the worst trees first. Now, where that becomes modern is that we are using a historical power source in the form of animals, but it's modern in lots of ways. And I have to share those ways with you. One of the very first ones is the fact that we use modern components for our equipment that is actually collecting the energy of the horse's movement forward against resistance of whatever load we have behind it without damaging or injuring the horse. It also involves, at the same time, a marriage of old traditional cultural values and virtues and understandings of good animal husbandry or animal lifery, of where you are taking care of these animals in such a way that they are able to perform repetitive, strenuous efforts over and over for a lifetime of 20 years plus, oftentimes while they are regenerating or replacing themselves in the form of, you've never found a baby skitter in the woods one morning, but we have mares that have had babies while they were working. That's one aspect of why we make it modern. The first aspect of why it's modern is because it's happening today. And because we have young people engaged through Healing Harvest as biological woodsman apprentice, it will be happening tomorrow because they are going forward. Our youngest apprentice right now is a lady named Lily Shelton, who I don't know if I have a photo of her on here to show you, but she's currently apprenticing with me through a Virginia Humanities Award, grant award. And she's 21 years old and she's doing her master's in humanities at Virginia Tech right now, based on Healing Harvest and restorative forestry and modern horse logging. So she's becoming an expert in this, not only in the hands-on sense that she can drive, harness, drive, handle the horses, cut the timber, cut the trees down. She does everything just as well as anyone else. So that means it's modern and that it's going to be a part of the future.
I'm gonna go back to how you got started.
Yeah, all right. How I got started. Well, that's all. I'm going to jump all over the place here. My timeline is one of up and down and back and forward. I got started because I was born in 1950 to a sharecropper's daughter who was 16 years old, and I was raised by my grandfather. Because he was the only male figure who was there, because she was a sophomore in high school and had to go back to finish school. So I was raised by a man that was born in 1903, during a time when the horse and buggy was the only way of going, who had lived through the period when automobiles became the mode of transportation.
Stay close to
And so I grew up in the shadow of a man whose father fought in the Civil War. So I have this great time warp of cultural influences, of none of my own making by any means. Just like most of us are not of our own making, we're the sum total of the influences in our life. But that old man could not read or write, but he was a great cultural skill. His ability to manage horses and grow crops kept him moving from farm to farm as a sharecropper in Southside Virginia in the bright tobacco. And I learned how to be around horses and oxen and work in the woods with him, because every fall after the tobacco was tied and sold and the molasses was made, we would go to the woods and we would work in the woods until it was time to come out of the woods and burn a brush pile on the end of the field and plant your plant bed. They didn't use herbicide to have a clean piece of ground to plant seeds on for the tobacco sets for the next year. They burned a brush pile on the ground, and that way the ground was purified with fire. There was no other seeds or anything there, and then they seeded it with the seeds that they pulled up and set in that field and grew their crops with. So I grew up, that's how I got started. I got started by the cultural influence that I had nothing to do with, coming to be the dominant determining factor in my life in 1972, when I came back out of the Vietnam era military service, when I dropped out of Virginia Tech Forestry School. And I resented what was going on in modern life. I resented and wanted to rebel against the modern things that were happening at that point in life, including being a military service person that, was not even welcome back in your own home after you risked your own life. So I just wanted to go to the woods and be on my own, alone, and do what I do in a way that gave me my own sense of dignity, to feeling good about who I was and what I was doing. And that led me to develop this modern connection with the forestry needs and my historical connection of the animals that had been a part of my life when I was growing up. And that gave me a sense of independence that I couldn't have had to any other way.
Do you want some leather?
So that's how I got started. Let's do the next one.
Okay.
All right. That other picture there was a picture of a young horse in a young forest. That's a weanling baby that's 7 months old, was born on our farm, and she's standing in a piece of woods that when I bought the piece of woods in 1984 was cut to the ground. They had cut all the good trees off of it, just like most of the land in Southwest Virginia or any rural parts of America. One of the classic practices to cut all the trees down and sell the land to the hippies. Because that's the only people who are going to want to cut over a piece of timberland. Somebody that just got a homesteader's dream to go back to the country and be self-sufficient. And that's what I was. And that's how I got that piece of land. Well, now today I have the best forest in the village. And I have the best forest in the village because I practice restorative forestry. And this piece of land that this cult is standing on is one where I use to teach a practice called TSI, Timber Stand Improvement. And he's standing there in a piece of woods that I have taught people how to go in and cut the worst trees down, identify the best trees, and leave them as the dominance on each individual site on a site-specific basis.
Can we go forward?
So yeah, let's go forward. All right, now we're going to take you on a little journey about some of the things that we've done as a group. And when I say a group, I mean I never do anything alone. Even though I earlier said, oh, I just want to get away and go in the woods and be by myself. In reality, that's not what I want to do. In reality, I want to be a part of a social situation with cohorts, peers who have common interest and vision and want to do this similar things as I want to do. You know, there's an old saying that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And if you can find a young person that wants to do something with their life similar to what you've done with your life, then your life has been worth living. And that's exactly what I do when I work with the young people through Healing Harvest Forest Foundation, which, by the way, we started Healing Harvest Forest Foundation in 1999 in response to an RFP from the Ford Foundation that was trying to develop replicable, community-based, sustainable forestry programs in the United States. And we won a grant to start the organization as a part of that process and have been in a good standing ever since then. We're one of the oldest sustainable forestry organizations in the nation. Not because we're so super exceptional, but just because a lot of the other ones just fell on the wayside when the grant became harder to get. After the 90s, you couldn't get environmental grants much anymore. Try getting an environmental grant today, a large one. So one of the things we do all sorts of specialty things. And one of the specialty things we do or have done in the past is this event here. We went to the Monastery of Holy Spirit and outside of Atlanta, Georgia in Conyers, and we harvested timber 2 times from a salvage situation to where they had trees that had blown down in a green burial graveyard. Do you know what green burial is? Where they bury you in a box 3 foot deep and they don't put monuments and they don't embalm you in green burial. But that is, and it's often in the forest, or it's usually in the forest. But they had some trees blew down from a hurricane and we went down, or a tornado. And we went down there and salvaged all those trees. We actually got trees out of the forest, cut them off the stumps where they were clay rooted, where some had even unearthed graves and got them all out without tearing them up. And we processed that material into beams that was used to build this cathedral, this chapel. So they, Streamline Timberworks, who are collaborators over in Florida, went down and built that structure for them from the material that we were salvaging from the tornado. Well, 15 years later, they have another project going on, and I guess we can move to the next one. Right?
Okay.
And the
Let's let them know. I want to interject for a second. We're
yeah,
going to
this is my
have,
partner Heidi Dickens.
we're going to have several pictures. Ask questions as they come up. You don't need to wait till the end. And Jason is recovering from throat cancer. So we want to make sure you can hear him. Don't hesitate to asking to
Repeat
but
myself
that's-
because I don't mind
yeah.
repeating. I'm so happy to be able to be here and be able to talk to you at all. So this picture is of us actually in the conservation burial grounds in Conyers, Georgia. Each one of those yellow stakes is a grave. And you can see the young woman that is operating the horses there and the young man that is doing the timber felling. This young woman is, she was a junior at the University of the Atlantics in Maine. She did a full semester with me, got 12 credit hours for spending her time with me. She left me and she went and did an exchange working with horse loggers in Norway. Her name is Bella Salmon. The gentleman on the left is the former friar of the
Abbot of the
monastery. He's now the wildlife conservationist. And this is just showing what we're doing is we're pulling these are planted yellow pine, loblolly pine, and the southern pine beetle had come in there and it killed a lot of them. So it presented a liability of dead limbs falling on the visitors. So we went in and removed all of those dead trees and the damaged trees, worse first, but it took precision felling to fall them without falling on the graves. And of course, precision low impact extraction, which is exactly what the horses offered because they could pull them out down the golf cart trails. And I must say, we got paid very well for doing this. This is not what we normally do, but then this is a specialty that we were able to provide a service for that gave an opportunity to support my apprentices and to make a little money to help make a land payment, tax payment, and doing all the real world things that everybody has to do, including me. And then now we're going to have a little piece here about.
And we're going to talk over it because the
Yeah.
audio's not.
This is the pair of horses that I work.
Horses.
Uh-oh.
You do grace.
Grace. They look eager to
Yeah,
go.
just mute the video.
That's a temporary fencing situation we put up on every place we go. If we have water, we just put up a temporary fence and we feed them hay and they're able to stay on site.
I see.
And they're waiting for us they're obviously waiting. What I'm reading when the horses are speaking to me with their body language, and horses speak with body language more than noise, is they're hungry. It's breakfast time. Where's my food? So I'm coming to give it to them. Those horses, by the way, I use an extremely rare breed of draft horse. Only 700 of them in North America, all of North America, including Canada and the US, called the Suffolk Punch. It was originated in Suffolk County, England. It's the oldest tracked registry of any draft breed on the planet, going back almost 400 years. They're almost extinct in England. There's only 280 in all of England. I have been to England. In fact, Heidi and I went to England last year.
Good morning, horses.
And
Doing grace.
Yeah. These horses are a son and daughter of a stallion that I imported in 2010. I went over and we purchased the horse and brought him back. His name is Ike, E-Y-K-E, which is Anglo-Saxon for oak. Over there, they pronounce it Ak. And I call him Ike. He's sired over 100 offspring now. So he did a great job for us. I kept him for 17 years. I just sold him this summer. I have one of his sons who's come along to replace him. That was the horse that you saw standing in the woods earlier, the Gary colt that we kept. We went back 17 years later. We were invited to investigate getting another Suffolk stallion, since we know so many people in England. Because I actually spent, and a segue, watch the movie Somehow Hopeful. Write Somehow Hopeful down, look at it on YouTube, it's free. In the movie, it will give you a little segment telling you about how I discovered the Suffolk horse. If it doesn't make the hair stand up on the back of your neck, you're not paying close attention. Watch it again. because it was a weird thing that happened. It's one of those weird, hard to describe, hard to deny that there's a lot more going on than what we are about in this world. So we went back to, Heidi and I went back to England last
December.
this December 24. And they gave me a stallion because they know what I do with these horses and they know what I'm about with the young people. And the Countess of Houston, the Queen Elizabeth's niece, her mother and Queen Elizabeth were sisters, gave us a Suffolk stallion to bring back to this country. And we brought it back to this country with money that we got from grants from private donors. And we gave it to a young person in Indiana. I don't need it. I'm 75 years old. I don't need another young stallion. I got one. In fact, I'm raising him myself. I'll take my chances with him. So we took this horse and put him out into the middle of this country where it could do the most good, serving the most mares with a young person that will spend, the peak of his life with this great horse. His name is Houston Dazzling King Charles. And I don't have a picture of him, but he's a big, beautiful horse, and he's 3 years old. He's already got 2 mares in foal. So the Suffolk, that's my Suffolk horse story, and you'll read more about that, or you'll hear more about it if you watch the movie somehow. Tools of the trade. This is part of why we've become modern. This is a device that was developed by my mentor, a man I studied back in the 80s, early 80s, named Charlie Fisher, that provides front-end suspension and lifts the log up off the ground. The wheel is a wonderful invention. This is a passive machine. It has no moving parts on it. Now, it does have a release that drops the logs, but it provides front-end suspension of the log and gives the operator a safe place to be up on the arch instead of down on the ground in the debris. And I used to think, well, that's kind of a sissy way to do it, but the older you get, the more riding becomes a good thing. I can ride that thing too, believe me. I can get up on it, ride it in all sorts of situations. We use that to extract the logs and heavy logs in all sorts of difficult situations, uphill, downhill, across the hill, wherever you want to go. So that's our log arches. They're currently being manufactured by Ben Burgess.
We have an online question.
Okay, what is the online question?
Somebody was asking if you do work with small private plots of like 10 acres or so?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That was a great question. Did you hear that question? In fact, the demographics are in this forested regions of Virginia that 75%, 3 out of 4 acres, is privately owned in tracts of 10 acres or less. The forest has been, the environmentalists don't like it because they consider it fragmentation, that the forest is being cut into smaller and smaller pieces. And I understand that, but the reality is that people have to have a place to live, and a lot of young modern people have gone into areas distant from the cities and have bought them a piece of land, 10 acres or so of wooded land, and they built them a nice, beautiful home on it. They did not buy that land for the speculative timber value. They bought it for the aesthetics of wanting to live in a beautiful forest. And they have a high value for the way the forest looks. So those kind of people are completely open and in fact have created an overwhelming demand for our services to work in small tracts. And it's the perfect thing for us to do because in order to move conventional equipment onto a site and harvest timber, you have to cut all the trees and cut a lot of acreage in order to make your payments. You know, you go out here and you can buy a team of horses for what you can buy one skidder tire for, you know, and so the point is that is our dominant working site is small tracts for private landowners. They're also much more willing to deal with the economics. They're not wanting a whole lot of money out of it. They're just not wanting the forest to have trees die and fall over. People are even more cognizant today of fire risk by having a fuel load in your forest from trees dying and falling over, that they know that a good harvest can reduce that threat to their own homes, cutting trees back away from their homes to where that there's not a chance for a forest fire to come through and burn their homes down. We're not out west, but we still have forest fire potential, and the way it's been extreme climatically lately, being so terribly dry sometimes, we have to be aware of the fuel load and the fire potential in our region too. And that's why our services are, one of the reasons why our services are in such demand for small landowners. So yeah, we do work on small tracts predominantly. Most of the tracts we work on are 40 acres or less.
So we're going to go through a series of videos and we're going to leave more time for his stories after
Yeah,
that.
let's hear your discussion.
One comment, I work in water pollution, not forestry, but I've hiked in a lot of places that have been logged. The footprint left behind with the mechanical, it's pretty horrible. You can get in with horses and not tear up the ground and selectively cut in ways that the mechanical cannot leave it in a huge mess and a lot of erosion that's going to impact streams and be there for decades.
Well, I think
That much lighter footprint.
that's the kind of question I like to hear, a positive statement. Thank you. You're exactly right. I mean, you know, I have a lot of empathy. I don't further my cause by talking bad about conventional practices. Conventional practices, when you ride down the road and you see a big, huge clear cut up across the side of a mountain, that's a landscape scale billboard for my work. Because I send people with directions all the time, go to this place and this point, and right there at that corner, you will see where I log. And they call me that night, say, I went over there to where you said that logging job was, and I can't see where anybody's logged. That's exactly the point. You're not supposed to see where anybody's logged. I mean, you can get plenty of wood out of the woods without destroying the whole forest. And the time is on this movie, and in this movie, you'll see where I say very often that the time is rapidly approaching to where the value of the forest is going to be greater for the ecological services that it's providing to humans than the trees, the logs. You know, the most valuable product to come out of any forest is the water, not the logs. So, I mean, we all need water. So the time is coming where the protection and the preservation of the forest as an ecosystem will become a paramount objective of all active forest managers, not cutting the trees down as quick as you can and selling them as fast as you can to the quickest market, because that's what's happening now. You would be amazed at how much of a percentage of the lumber that's coming out of Terman Lumber Company right here in Radford that is getting on container ships and being shipped overseas right now. We're shipping all of our best lumber to other parts of the world because we don't have a furniture industry anymore. We've already sold them to furniture factories. You know, Reed Factory Man from Beth Macy. You know, so here we go.
Well, let's not show this video. They just get to see the whole harness and rigmarole.
Let it roll. It's only 40 seconds.
Let it roll.
Oh, yeah, but
Okay.
this is us hooking the horses up. And this is where I get to use my one little cool line that I like. Despite the training and the work and the athletic development and the mindset of the horses to be suitable to this kind of work, the most important thing that any dynamic creature like a horse can store more glucose in its muscle cells than any other animal besides a dolphin. That's why they can give you these tremendous bursts of power. And they can get that glucose from eating coarse feed in the form of hay. But the most important thing that those animals will ever do for you is nothing. Stand still. If they won't stand still, you cannot hook them to anything. So you see those horses standing right there and the controls laying on the ground beside them. And then that's what they're doing now. We're just hooking them up to the arch. There's a procedure and a technique and an order of how you do this. We teach this and drill it to the students. Each one of those procedures is based on safety, making sure that the practitioner can get to where they're going to work safely. So we teach that all the time.
Okay.
It's so funny in this whole album here, all of the operators are women.
I just wanted y'all to hear that.
I was the first two cut on the job. And all of these trees have been selected because they'd already had the beetle damage in them. And we just knocked them down.
Yeah.
We might pass the next one. The next one is there's a technique of how to cut the trees down. It's called the open face hinge and latch timber felling technique. The local common word for it is Swede cut. Swede cut. And it's called the Swede cut because in 1980, in its first 3 or 4 years of the 80s, they hired a Swedish man named Soren Eriksson who came here and taught directional felling of how to fall the trees down with an open face lead notch, identifying the safe side and the danger side, cutting the danger side first, putting a wedge in, going in, and cutting the safe side second, and allowing the tree to fall away from you. Of all the things that I learned and of all the things that I teach to help you do this successfully, that's the most important one. Because that's really the danger. Falling to trees is a dangerous, violent experience. So let's remember, we're trying to protect the residual. Those trees we leave are more precious than the trees we take. So we want to make sure we fall them just where they don't hit the trees that we're choosing to leave for the future forest.
Right next to the grave.
That's how precise it had to be.
Yeah.
We've got a question in the back of the room.
Yes, sir.
Do you normally use a small wedge cut and a larger back cut, or the other way?
No.
Can you repeat that?
Let's repeat the question.
Yeah, he asked, do I use a smaller wedge cut or a larger back cut? And the answer is no. It's a 4-cut method. The first thing that you do is, if you look at a chainsaw, any chainsaw you got, and look at it close, you will see that there's a line that is at an exact right angle to your bar that goes right across the top of the saw. Most people think it's a pinstripe, it's a decorative thing. It isn't. It is the site of that saw. And if you'll follow this sweep cut method, this European method of felling timber, that line will point right where the tree is going to go, because it's at an exact right angle to the bar, and the bar establishes the front of the hinge, and the I don't know what. So your first cut is the first cut is pointing the saw where you want it to go, and you cut that down into the tree to cut the first part of the open face. And that's the, I don't know what you call it, lead notch open face, but that's, and then the second cut is matching that up. And then that's the front of your hinge. Then you go around from the safe side and you plunge into the tree on the exact same plane or level as the open face. And you sweep out half of the tree from the danger side, from the way the tree is leaning towards. You put some wedges in it so it doesn't sit down on your saw when you're releasing the rest of it. And then the hinge and the wedges are holding the tree up. And then you go around and plunge in from the safe side, the way the tree is leaning away from it, and you sweep out the back, and you're not cutting only one notch is being made. And when you sweep out the back, that last little bit of material that you cut, you'll see every time you're cutting it, it'll go pop. And that's the latch. So they call it open face, hinge, and latch timber felling method.
I'm gonna move you along.
Okay, I'll teach you how to do that. Come into the woods with us. We do free courses on that every year. Virginia Department of Forestry has approved that. That's the only method that's approved for timber felling to get workman's compensation on your logging crew. That's how important it is.
So, sir, I think I might have maybe said the question wrong. I guess I need more along the lines of, if you have a larger wedge cut, would you say that where you're trying to get the tree to go is more accurate versus a smaller wedge cut?
No, because the toughest fiber in the tree, he asked whether the large open face wedge cut is more effective in controlling the direction of the tree than the small one. And it isn't, and here's why it isn't. The further you cut back into the tree, the more brittle the wood, the fiber is. The sapwood, or the outside of the tree, is the toughest wood there is, because that's where the moisture is. So we never cut more than 10% back into the tree. So that part of my hinge is always on the sapwood. And that way it controls it. And until that mouth closes and that tree falls, that hinge is still holding that tree. It doesn't crack that hinge until it closes the mouth.
So it doesn't pop up and then.
Oh, no, it doesn't. It's totally controlled the whole way to the ground. Sometimes you get hang up. Sometimes you'll get one hang up in another tree. Then you have to have some special skills to get that down.
You got 15. You got 15 minutes. Let me go through these.
Yeah.
I'll probably leave the sound on because the horses, they've got trees crashing, chainsaws buzzing, and
They become oblivious to all of it. What's the noise? As long as the noise doesn't connect to touching them or hurting them, after about the third or fourth time they hear it, it means nothing to them. They're prey animals who escape by fleeing. And this is her. Watch the dog control this horse. 24-foot long wall coming around the storage area. This facility thing, look that out, not touching the wall, is exquisite. It's not bad, not bad, I'll take it. That was
How
pretty
long is
skilled.
that wall?
24 feet, that's 212. So it's 25 feet, 2 12-foot 6-inch walls. That material all went to be made into 2x structural material, 2x4, 2x6. And this is something that happens every day when we do these events. This is my heir apparent to Helium Harvest, the guy that will take it over when I'm done. He was a former apprentice, he's now a senior master biological woodman. He's a senior because he's been doing it for 10 years. He's a master because he's taken his own baby horses from babies to service in the woods. So that makes him a senior master biological woodsman. Yeah, he actually, his family owns 1,000 acres of timber in Kentucky. That was old gas and oil land that they bought when nobody wanted it. When it was a cut over mess, they thought it was worthless. They bought it, and now guess what? It's a beautiful forest because they've been doing worse first timber selection. But he's there with the apprentices of that week, which are Bella Salmon, Erica Tenner,
In Castle.
Castle Eubank. That was his name, yeah. And those are just young people that are there talking about what we're really doing. Here's I'm not here because I'm telling you, I wasn't invited to this sustainability discussion because I was going to have a story that was going to make you rich. If you could be rich and be sustainable, we would all already be doing it. It's the counter to that. It's the unsustainable behavior that creates the great witches. But what this does offer you is something I mentioned earlier, is it has a very high human dignity dividend. What is your dignity worth? Mine's priceless. Nobody's going to tell me what my dignity is worth. I'm the one that decides what my dignity is worth. And if I make the decision to do something that I know that is improving to this earth, then I can get a lot further with my personal motivation, with that ethic as a part of it, than I can a lot of money. Although we do need money, and I definitely deal with money every day. This is called a difficulty extraction. This is a tree that they cut over a bank. See that bank? There's about an 8-foot bank down there, and they cut a tree, and one of the boys cut it, and it went over the bank before if he'd have cut it whole, I could have pulled it out. But we were hooking to it, and saw Bella go down off that bank. We're going to pull it up on the bottom of the bank, and we're going to back up. She's going to get her coat out the way. Then we're going to back up, and she's going to put me up tighter and tighter and tighter.
The trust
she's doing is called a chain
involved.
monkey. That's an entry-level position. You become a chain monkey before you become a biological woodsman. We've all chain monkeys.
That's pretty
Knowing
steep.
how to hook the chain up precisely
Very.
where you go. Now we're going to lift. Now you watch this arch. Lift that log up over that bank. And out it comes with very minimum impact. Then she'll hook me up again tighter and tighter. She knows the procedure because she's done it all. She knows how to put her chain onto the log arch without having a chance of pinching her finger. There's skill to this. You got to be skilled. This is not a casual, this is not an occupation of last resort. Most of your conventional, one of the things I need to do is distinguish the difference between a biological woodsman, who are the people that we train to do this, and a logger. A logger is somebody that goes into the forest and converts this biological entity of a tree into a commodity of a log for a feed. A biological woodsman is someone who goes into the forest and works in such a way that they know that they will always be able to return to where they worked.
Okay.
They work with tomorrow as a part of their vision today. And this is what happens. You have trees that hang up all the time. You go to follow them, they fall over another tree, and there it's stuck. So this is where the horses really display their power. If they're unable to do this by hooking directly to it, like you see that I'm doing there, and I'm a little far away from it, so the closer you hook to it, the stronger they are, so I'll back up and rehook. Oftentimes we use physics, we use pulleys and cables, and we run the cables through the pulleys, and each time you run the cable through a pulley, it doubles the strength of the horses.
Scary.
There you go. It's on the ground now. We have that happen about once or twice a week because we're leaving 70% of the trees. And this is Erica driving full length log out into the landing.
And for the record, these apprentices, they have day jobs.
Yeah, this one
She's a
is,
counselor. She has her master's in counseling and her employer actually allows her to use, they pay her to donate her time to Healing Harvest Forest
as a
Foundation.
nonprofit, so that she gets part of her. It's like paid vacation for her to go do this. She's been with us to several places. And we'll probably see her this weekend at the Blue Ridge Folklife Festival in Ferrum. We go there every year or two.
Yeah.
A lot of crowds, people show up because, people have an affinity for horses, whether they even know why. And when you realize that 100 years ago, that everybody in this country was dependent upon a beast of burden for their very existence, for transportation, for food, for shelter, everything was about a relationship with a working animal. So we do not erase those thousands and thousands of years of culture with the presence of cheap intensive energy in the form of oil for the last 75 years. This stuff is still a part of us. People like horses even though they don't know why. And somebody like Winston Churchill is wise enough to make a statement like there's something good about the outside of a horse to the inside of a person. And that means something. When you touch a horse, Colorado State University did a study about 10 years ago where they put a horse in the middle of a big room and had a group of 20 people in a circle, and they had those people kept moving closer and closer to the horse. Meanwhile, they got monitors on them, EKGs and all that. The closer to the horse they got, the slower their heart rate came and the slower their respiratory came. It calmed them. And by the time they were touching the horses, the people were in a near meditative state. It's true. There's something good about the outside of a horse for the inside of a person.
Well,
And
I
just-
skipped over Ben. Do they want to see Ben?
Yeah, I want to see Ben too.
Okay.
Yeah, this is us leaving after we finished the job. We were there for a whole week. I don't know what
Sorry.
happened. We went away again.
Me,
Went back to Augusta.
operator error.
Yeah,
Try that again.
so yeah, we got paid good to do this. This is a specialty thing. We normally work on small tracts of timber where we cut on a share crop basis, where we go in and harvest the worst trees first. We pay on a 70-30 over 35. In other words, we pay 30% of the value of the material to the landowner on all the trees that are worth over 35 cents a foot. So that way we get to keep the lion's share of the money from the worst first for the ground level practitioner, because the landowner has a newly created ecological forested condition that is highly gainful in that we call it an enhanced residual dividend. Every time you go in and thin around the timber like we do, the remaining trees suddenly are not. That's an interesting thing. Most people don't realize the biological growth rate of a forest is the same as most interest rates commonly have been throughout history, 4%. Well, when you go in and thin around them and you leave the best trees in a more properly spaced 20-foot apart basis, they can actually increase their growth rate by 300%. They can grow 12% annually. So the landowner inherits that condition as a result of our work. So that means the lion's share of the proceeds of the worst first timber that's extracted goes to the practitioner, so they can have a chance of making a living doing this work.
Is he blessing the horse?
He is.
He
That's
is,
the
that's
abbot.
exactly what he's doing. This is the abbot.
Father
Was named
Augustus.
Brother Augustus last time we were there, but he's now the abbot. And he loved Grace, and Grace loved him. They had an affinity from the initial onset. The horses know. The horses have this ability to comprehend and read so much about things around them that we don't fully understand yet. I think that's one of the more, another reason how I got started. And the follow-up question then is, why are you still doing it, you old coot? Well, it's because I still am learning. I'm still inspired every day by a relationship with these loving creatures. And that horse loved Augustus, and Augustus loved her. Now, this tells you about who we are in our little organization, in our old website. It's not real hot, but it's there. If you wanted to contribute to it, I'm afraid at this point you still have to go all the way, and we're trying to set up PayPal and Venmo and donate now buttons. We've had them there before. They've gotten compromised. We've had to get rid of it. But that's who we are, and that's how you can find us. And then there's other information, including the full-length documentary that are really, there's cards right here. You can take them if you want to, but it's not just write down somehow hopeful. If you type somehow hopeful into your phone, it will come up with a trailer and show you a picture of me with a full beard and are you listening? Look on my face, which is what it really is about. And then we had some other things. We had a Grammy Award-winning piece on PBS called The Appalachian Horse Whisperer. You can watch that at that YouTube page. The TED Talk Forest of Dreams, as opposed to Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. This is a Forest of Dreams. If I keep doing this, then the young people will have a chance to see that there are different ways of doing things. And then, of course, my little farm there with Ridgewind Suffolks, which is down to, I only own 3 Suffolks now. I have had as many as 40 at one time, but I'm retiring. And so I'm reduced my horses down to just a few. Are they?
We have time for questions.
Yeah, we do have some
or
questions.
for you to
If anybody
continue.
has any questions?
I actually have a couple from the people online.
Oh, thank you.
So, what is the approximate cost to take out some timber on 15 wooded acres of pine and hardwood? That's the first one.
Well, first of all, it isn't a cost. You should get paid you get paid for doing it. And the pay would usually be if, you know, it's all site specific. The greatest, you know, I did end up going back to tech later and got my forestry titling capacity. And took several courses there after dropping out as a teenager.
What's the cost?
There should be no cost. You should be paid for material that's harvested from your place. So when you look at the average, all we can do is, like right now to respond to this question, or most questions, all I can talk about is averages. But it's always site specific. Where I was going there with the education thing is that despite what we were taught in forestry school about site specific factors, like the site index, the soil content, the depth of the soil, the moisture content, the species available growing there. Despite all of that wonderful science that we learned, the invisible gorilla in the room is the fact that the greatest influence on that forest is former human intervention. It's what we have done there last that influences what we have there now. In 500 years, the forest will correct all the bad practices we've had if it doesn't become taken over by alien invasive botanicals and become a jungle of no growth of dominance. And so my point is that each site is unique according to what has happened to it in the past. On an average, a forest has about 10,000 board feet of trees per acre. We would harvest 3,000 board feet of those if we harvest a third. Of that third, we would probably pay for a third of those. So on an average, a landowner would probably make at least $300 an acre to harvest their timber if they've got a reasonable set of timber and still have all their trees. If it's a planted white pine forest, it's not going to be of great value because the demand for white pine is so weak, because there's several contributing factors. If I had my friend Michael Turman here, who I know very well and is a friend of mine, who has sent me many jobs, who has bought trucks for me, who has helped me in all sorts of ways. He understands that restorative forestry is a benefit. He doesn't clear cut because he wants to destroy the forest. It's just a conventional practice that he and everyone else is employing. But he would tell you that white pine is being outcompeted because the Peace Corps went to South America and planted radionic pine in the 60s and the 70s, and now they're harvesting that timber, shipping it here into Norfolk, kiln dried dressed lumber for the same price that we have to get for our logs. So white pine is selling for the same price today it did 15 years ago. How can you make a living producing a commodity that sells for the same price today as it did 15 years ago. You can't.
So there's actually sort of a related question to that. In a piece of land with pine trees only, clearly planted 25 or so years ago by previous owners for future logging, would you take them all down or only partially? What's
That's a
the,
great question. That's a great question because I see it in Floyd County all the time. She should ask, what the landowner should ask themselves is, what is the spatial arrangement? Are the trees 6 foot apart or 12 foot apart? If they're 6 foot apart, they were planted as a Christmas tree plantation and abandoned. Floyd County is full of Christmas tree plantations that are abandoned. The forest never grows to a healthy state. It's always too overstocked and killing itself on the way to growing, creating a fire hazard, creating an unhealthy forest hazard, creating weakened trees that foster diseases, blister rust, white pine aphid. So, but at the same time, a little anecdotal story. I was a speaker at the 7th American Forest Congress in Washington, D.C. several years ago. And I was on a panel with other experts. One of them was Dr. Smith, who was the guy who coined the phrase even age management. Even age management is forester talk for clear cut. So if you've got an even age forest that was all planned at the same time, then that's a perfect opportunity to do a clear cut. But when you're in a mixed age forest that has different trees at different ages, clear cutting is the worst thing you could do for it. You should leave the best trees to grow as old as they possibly can, cut down the worst trees and create new growth within it all the time. But at that talk, they went by there and I had given my talk in a room full of 1,500 foresters from all over the world. They had loved the stories that I told and so said about it. They come around and moderate at the end and said, and here we have Mr. Rutledge, the Appalachian horse logger. And I really did enjoy your talk today. We appreciate you coming up here for us. But even Mr. and they always try to put a dig in. Even Mr. Rutledge will have to admit that we're not going to log all of Appalachia with horses. The room got dead silent. My brain gave me a really good response. And the response was, do you mean again?
Oh.
Because we've already logged it with horses once when it was a lot bigger trees than it is now. It's not a matter of if we can do it, it's a matter of if we will. And if we have a different value system to where we put values on the ecological services that the forest is providing and the people aren't paying for. And that was another thing. I spoke to the Senate State subcommittee one time about how can you keep private forest land forested? Because I work on private forest land more than anywhere else. And I said, well, it's real simple. If you just give them a tax incentive to validate the value of the ecological services that the forest is providing and the public is not paying for, if you give people a tax incentive to keep their forests in a good, healthy condition, then they will do that. But you got to recognize that there are values there that are for the public good, that the government is the only tool we have to reward that kind of behavior. That's
somebody also asked, what's the best way to get on your schedule?
Fill out a biological woodsman apprenticeship application and learn how to do it yourself.
Oh.
That's the best way to get on my schedule, because I'm retired. I mean, I got 40 acres of woods, and between us, we got nearly 100 acres of woods between our family, and I'll be doing good to take care of that the rest of my life.
But email or call.
But yes, email or call, but find somebody in their family that is interested. I mean, we got a lot of young people out here with face jewelry and purple hair, and they're raging against the machine, and they're rebels with too many clues. And we need to help them find out a way of finding dignity for themselves. And if they want to come here and learn how to work these horses and work in the woods, you can make a fair living at it. And that would be the best way to get on the schedule, is either become a practitioner yourself or sponsor someone to become a biological woodsman through our training programs. Sir.
Are you all doing any biochar with Splash?
We've sold a lot of it.
Sorry, can you
junk.
repeat the question?
Yeah,
Sorry.
he asked what we're doing in the biochar. You know, Floyd County has a biochar plant. The only one in the region, as I'm aware of. And it belongs to Jack Wall of Wall Residences out there. And we did biological woodsman's week where we worked on his place harvesting abandoned Christmas tree plantations in a place where the trees were so thick and there were holes from where they dug nursery out of it. It was a terrible, terrible situation. Horrible to work, even with horses, you couldn't hardly work it. But most of that material that was too small to make a saw log out of, if it was 8 inches or less, you can't make a saw log out of it. So we just took it to the biochar plant where they apply. And if you go right there at the Floyd Eco Village, you'll see that the biochar plant is on the far east side of that grounds, and they're making biochar every day.
What is biochar?
Biochar is the black stuff when you burn your fire in your stove and you see the little black chunks that don't get burnt. That's the char. And that stuff is like, that's what they use to filter water to make it pure. But they take that and they grind it up in little crumbles and they put little tiny pieces of it on the soil, and it becomes this incredibly absorptive, purifying stuff for soil. It'll purify herbicides and pesticides out of soil. It's a biochar. So the woods, the forest provides great things for human nurture. And by the way, the mission statement of Healing Harvest Forest Foundation
Other
is,
comment?
sir,
Exactly a question, but there's a hemp economy getting moving where people are using hemp to make boards and flooring and cloth.
yeah, maybe it is.
In the world, it's sugar cane residue. So all the fiber needs of humans don't have to come from trees.
No, they sure don't. We could, hemp has produced great fiber, and there's all sorts of other fiber needs. And I've been the one that's been supporting a fuel ethanol from sweet sorghum for years and years and years too. But I wanted to give you the mission statement for Healing Harvest Forest Foundation. And the mission statement is to address human needs for forest products while creating a nurturing coexistence between the forest and the human community. That's what this is about. It took a long time to make. I spent weeks working on that mission statement, and it really means something. But I thank you for your interest. You have another question, sir?
So right now I'm cutting a driveway, and in doing so, having to clear quite a few trees. I'm having pigs follow behind me to basically I'm terracing the side of the mountain. And I'm going and collecting different types of seeds like redbud, locust, and if you have any suggestions, what would be other good things to stop erosion? I'm using that as pig food, and whatever the pigs miss, they basically plant. And so that bottom part of the terrace or driveway is, I'm hoping, gonna be planted with all types of things like redbud and locust. If you have any other suggestions as far as.
Well, you know, he's asking about how to use forested plants to buffer the impact of erosion or potential erosion from a disturbance, from a road building, house building. Well, the first thing you need to understand is that the forest regenerates itself in successional occurrences. And the very first trees that come to a site are called the pioneers. They're the first comers. Those are the trees that will fix nitrogen, like black locust, and prepare the soil to a rapidly shaded condition with nitrogen put in the ground to grow trees that will be the next generation in the successional occurrence, which are called the intermediate trees. The pioneers only live to be about 75 years at most, and then they're superseded by the trees that get over top of them with bigger leaves. All the pioneers have small leaves, all the bigger trees have large leaves. So the bigger trees get over top of them, shade out the pioneers, the locust dies and falls over, then you have a real intermediate tree that'll grow to 150 years, and those are superseded in the progression of the forest aging to the climax species, or the trees that will live to be up to 500 years old, just like the big white oak is back here in town. That big, y'all know the big white oak, big famous white oak. Oh boy, that's a sweet specimen. And just to think that we could have those growing everywhere if we didn't cut them down so quickly, but they're so valuable, you know, people, it's a temptation to cut them. So when you recognize that the forests are working in successional occurrences, use the pioneers. Plant black locust. You can buy scions from the Virginia Department of Forestry, or you can go out and literally take a shovel and an axe and cut pieces of locust roots off the living trees and plant those pieces of roots. those pieces of roots will come up and sprout right off of it, the skyline will. And you'll get exactly a clone of the tree that it came from. Thank you.
I want to say thank you very much as part of Sustainable Blacksburg. Here's a small token of thank you,
Oh, thank
a
you.
little tote bag for you.
Thank you.
This has been very, very informative.
It's actually an upcycled tote bag too, that underneath there is a 2020 conference that underneath our logo is one for a 2020 conference that didn't happen. So
That's cool.
Repurposed.
You know, it's like when I get hired as a consultant, you come to one of my talks, so if there's ever any other questions, just contact me. I'm your consultant for as long as I'm alive.
thank you so much.
Thank you all.